Okay, good morning, folks. It is 7:24 on Wednesday morning, and I've just done the stock reviews. I thought I'd get up bright and early and do this for you ASAP. Folks, I can't tell you how impressed I am with some of the stocks you guys are coming up with. Absolutely some phenomenal stocks coming through. Really stuff that's going to help your trading significantly, and that's really why I'm keen to be able to give you a whole lot back on these videos as well. Okay, so the first one we're looking at is RS, that's Roma Sierra, that's Reliance Steel Aluminium. I do think there's a nice area of resistance here. Obviously the stock's not ready to trade right now. What I would say though is, with a kind of stock like this, what I like to do is, if I was to trade it, and obviously there's no recommendations or anything like that, is when the actual resistance line's gone pretty high, what I like to do is get in at a very, very high rate there, because your risk is significantly smaller. If you can get up really high, so move your resistance line up so it's just maximum touching all of those the bounces there. There may be a chance you're not going to get into the trade, but if you get into the trade, the risk versus your reward ratio is phenomenal. I have even used market orders with these kind of stocks before, but don't put it down right here. I would say move it up a little bit, even if you want to go sort of mid-range, maybe just slightly below what I've got there. But the risk reward ratio you may miss one in 3 trades, or maybe even 2 in 3 trades if you're really pushing it. But the risk reward ratio in for that is just absolutely phenomenal. It really is, particularly for people who are spread betting. Your pound a point goes up significantly with that. Then we got DXCM, and here we have Dexcom, again upward trending support line. It pulled in what did it do yesterday? We got the upward resistance. So it came down here. It sold off a little bit down again. No major issues with that. I would prefer to have looked at a trade on this one, because it's a slight upward doji. It's a slight downward doji from yesterday. Although I think the markets finished up marginally down yesterday, so no real surprise. There's still a huge amount of indecision there, and pretty decent range if you get your entry point right there. I would be aware of this as a stop loss area though, because obviously it's still pretty fresh, pretty recent there. BAC. Okay, BAC. I had a look at this one long and hard yesterday, because I think it was Dave who actually put it onto the forum. But I tell you what I did like. Firstly, what I did like about the stock was that the resistance line along 10 was obviously a round number. So there's a lot of people who are trading this stock and believe that sort of $10 is a pretty decent price. However, the challenge with this was there's been an upward trending support line that's really going to kill your margin. Okay, now I was looking at it, and my concern was this upward trending support line. Obviously yesterday it sold off pretty nicely. It's not a huge stock either, so again, if people are spread betting, you can get some pretty good pounds a point. But it looks like it sold off nicely and aggressively, almost a textbook setup. If we had the doji a little bit higher there, that would be totally textbook. Sold off nicely, but I would be very aware of this upward trending support line there. I'll tell you what else is interesting, is I'm getting to get a real good understanding of what you guys are looking at and what you're looking for with these kind of stocks. So keep these stock reviews coming in, because at least it gives me an idea of where I can then help you guys on the webinar calls and stuff like that. So here we've got Target Corp, which again, upward trending support line, not as clear cut as some of the other ones we've seen, which could make entering a little bit more challenging. But you've got the upward trending support line, came pretty close to the bounces there as well. Nothing you haven't seen before. KO. Coca-Cola seems to be coming up a lot recently, and again it's a little bit messy. It's maybe a little bit messy. It's broken through this resistance, it's broken through the support here, and then rallied up. It's come down to this downward trending resistance line. Now there's a fair amount of indecision here, but again there is the longer term upward trending support line that's going to come into the equation for taking your profits, and it doesn't seem to be a huge range on that either. IGTE, some pretty decent support at around about the 1490 mark. I would prefer to have 2 or 3 days where it's actually sitting on the support line. We've just got little one bounces here. I'm not a huge fan of that. I like really more of a 2 or 3 bounces. Sorry, 2 or 3 days on the support line. Just makes it a little bit more solid. A little bit of a less of a guess, if that makes sense. Then we've got LYTS. And we have an upward trending support line. So bounce, bounce, bounce. This is a pretty angry stock as well. It moves a bit. It can move pretty significantly, as it did yesterday. Whoever submitted it, yeah, if you got into that trade, then you would have got into some profit yesterday. These are two, obviously a downward doji, and then a slightly upward closing doji as well. So again, textbook. This is the thing, folks. This is how we teach you to trade these things. But really, the more and more we're working on these, the more textbook entries you start finding coming up. And if you can get your entry points right, it just makes huge differences to your trading. Then we have RHI. Downward trending resistance line, bounce, bounce, bounce. I do like that these support lines are getting lower, so there is a pretty decent range there. Mind you, it gets maybe a little bit choppy around there. 27.80 on that resistance line there, and then 24. You should still be able to get your 10% and hopefully your risk ratios as well. Then we have CNH. Again, we had some pretty decent resistance at around about the 47.70 mark. It broke through resistance, therefore I'm not interested in the stock, unless should it come down to the support line and give me an entry point. And obviously we're looking at just over 4 months on that upward trending support line. What the stock's told us already is it has gapped up, and I don't know if that was an announcement. It looks like it may have been. It did gap up, but it's broken the resistance line, so it might be a potential for it to go actually continue going north when it came back down to that support line, as it looks like what it's doing at the moment. CNH, then we had S, upward trending support line. My only concern with the stock is that it's raised very, very rapidly over the last, from June to where we are now. It's literally gone from $2.50, which again it's very, very small, up to $5.50. So that's more than 100% increase on the way up. And generally what goes up quite quickly can come down quite significantly as well. So it's a pretty aggressive stock. That'd be my only concern with it. Yum. Hammering out a bit of a resistance around about the $74 mark. My concern with this is we've got a little bit of an upward trending support line here. Not a massive issue, but what is more concerning is but where I'd really prefer to take a different trade possibly is you've got a bounce there, that could be counted as 2 bounces. I'd rather see one mid-range here. Although, maybe I'm just splitting hairs here, just primarily because I want to give you an insight as to what the best things to look for in the trades. But does it follow the rules? Certainly. Then we have TER, which is a downward trending resistance line. We've got some support around about the $13 mark. 1580-ish where it's at the moment. Obviously you're going to use a stop order to get into that trade. Nothing overly concerning with that stock. You see what we have here, just something else for your learning, is you see we have a very short-term upward trending support line here. Now what we're finding is there is a fair amount of stocks that may have a horizontal resistance, but that the stock is on an upward trending support line. And you're getting a clash, but with this, obviously you've got a time frame that's very, very narrow. So, the longer the time frame, obviously the stronger the support line or the resistance line. But something like this wouldn't give me as much headache as maybe looking at what we had to look at back a little bit earlier. It wouldn't give me that much more indecision because it's a very short-term upward trending support line. But I do like that it's been as low as $13 since the end of October. So it's still pretty recent. Then we had Nano. And you can see as the market's shifting, we're getting a lot of short trades that are coming up now. Downward trending resistance line. The lows are getting lower as well, so I do like that. Stop saying I do like it. I don't like it as per recommendation, but what it's done is it's coming up to this resistance line here as well, getting pretty close to a textbook entry point. Maybe look to see it put in one more day there on a doji and then a potential short, but no major issues with that stock. It's rallied up and it's dropped off a little bit more, and it did the same thing here. You see how it rallied up and then sold off a little bit and came up and then sold off again. That's the only thing we know about a stock, folks, what it's done before. CBT. Again, downward trending resistance line. We've got the lows getting lower as well, which is great, and a pretty decent range on here as well. So 37.50, and there's support. There's a downward trending support line here as well, which is a pretty decent range. Cabot's come up a few times, I think, on the trading that we'd be looking at. So yeah, just something to be aware of there. Again, range, and if you can get your ratios right. You know, get your ratios right, and you're risking small amounts, and then you get one or two that really hit out the park. It can just make huge differences to your trading. I know I sound like a broken record a lot of the time, folks, but it's it's the truth, and sometimes I think if you've got to hear things a certain number of times before we actually get them into our context, so to speak. Downward trending resistance line, some nice indecision here, 3 days, nice indecision. If you were to trade this, obviously this would be the high of the actual bounce there, so you'd have to be considering that as your stop order, as your stop loss. Zoom. But again, downward trending resistance lines, the lows are getting lower. Again, a little bit of a frantic stock. I mean, look at some of these moves here. This is really, yeah, this is it can be pretty pretty hair raising to actually trade these kind of stocks, because they are what we call angry, I suppose. And then we have KNX. And again, downward trending resistance line, bounce, 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 setting up a little textbook entry point here. Again, whether you're going to get your, so yeah, again, whether you're actually going to get your ratios, because you've got a downward trending support line, that's something you're going to have to calculate. But folks, that is the stock review for Wednesday the 28th. Again, I'm really so proud of so many of you guys who are submitting these stocks and what have you. It will pay huge dividends in your trading. It really will pay huge dividends in your trading, and your trading as well, and ultimately get you to where you want to go with what you're doing. So there we have it. That's what I can give you for your stocks there, and have a great day's trading, and I look forward to hearing more success, and yeah, speak to you soon. All the very best, folks. Take it easy. Cheers.